Hello. We get to see how much lipstick transfers. Hello and welcome. My door is open in case my dog needs to come check on me because we're home alone today, just she and I. And she gets a little lonely. So also my microphone feels really far away. This is Clarice, the microphone. She's a little sensitive, but we love her anyways. What I was going to do, I saw someone. Who was it? Andy. Andy did a little fan cast of her her characters in her book, and I thought, that's great. What a great idea. So I started doing it for my characters. Only to remember that I made a choice with my character description. So let's talk about character descriptions. Well, first of all, 3 of the 4 characters that have a lot of description to them are aliens and don't have really inhuman qualities that just are weird to be like, this actor really looks like them. It's weird. So so that was part 1. I was like, actors, they play crazy characters all the time. Like, that's a thing. It's fine. We can go for more of like the vibe of the character rather than what they look like, which kind of worked. And then I remembered I have several characters that I chose to describe differently. And by differently, I mean, I don't really describe them physically because that's not the point. Let me explain. Okay. So I use character in my book, The Time Traveler's Hotel, which is coming out hopefully coming out this end of this year, end of 2025. In this book, I use character description to highlight different themes that a character is going through. Different themes for certain characters. For example, my main character, Matt, his name is Mateo Fan. Why is his name Mateo Fan? Because his parents are a biracial couple. His dad is Vietnamese, his mom is Hispanic. So they named him Mateo Fan. Kind of, you hear it and you're like, that's different. Okay, so you automatically know he is different. And that's the point. So I'm playing with that of just like, that's a theme with him. It's also plays into like, okay, who is this kid? And it plays into his identity. Where do I fit in all of this? And that's very much part of his journey, is kind of finding his identity. For Matt, this is a little spoilery, but not so much. I'm not telling you, plot points here, but for Matt, my main character in the Time Traveler's Hotel, his journey as a character is going from who am I and why do I matter to being a person who is encouraging other people to be confident in who they are and that they matter. So I go from him having these questions to being a person who encourages others who are having those same questions. He starts to kind of figure out his identity and where he fits in pretty early on. But then I make him make choices and say, okay, you feel like you fit here. Okay, you feel like this is your identity. Now do something about it. Don't just sit there. Don't be static. Now act. Because a lot of the themes for a lot of the characters is a lot of them are going from a place of staticness, of being in one place, of being still, or even stagnant. That's the word I want, not static. Almost all of the characters are going from a place of being stagnant to action and movement and change. Some willingly, some not so willingly. So, and that's kind of a theme also. So all that said, what that means is that for my character Matt, I don't describe him because what he looks like isn't important. And that's something he really wrestles with because he's also adopted. So not only are his parents a biracial couple, he is adopted. So he isn't even their kid, it's messy. It's a messy conversation. And so I have him think through those things and just because he's wrestling with that, I didn't want to get caught up in what he looked like. I have him, I think the only things I describe are that he's got brown hair that's maybe a little wavy. And I compare his height to other characters, but don't ever say how tall he is. And even I have a character who is kind of his love interest. She doesn't really describe she doesn't describe his looks other than his hair, because she doesn't care either. She likes him for who he is, and not like looks aren't as important to her, which is really interesting because that's also a journey she's going on about looks, because and part of what she's going through is that she can't control how her body reacts to her emotions. So when she gets anxious or embarrassed or any of those feelings in that genre of feelings, she has like spines on her body that start raising up. So she like a puffer fish. And so she's a teenage girl, and yet she's got like puffer fish spines all over her. She's not poisonous, just for clarification. But like looks are so, not it's important to her, but just like her own appearance is so like such a pain point for her, that what someone else looks like doesn't matter. Like it's really, really secondary, because she has learned that she does not want to be judged for what she looks like, because she can occasionally look like a porcupine. So I do play quite a bit with appearance things, which is really fun. I really enjoy that. Yeah, and the other two characters who I don't really give descriptions to is because that's not the point of their characters either. Like I have the best friend character, and the point of him is to be the best friend and to be steady and to be kind of a rock for everybody. In a lot of ways, he's very much a Samwise Gamgee. He's very steady, very calm, very analytical, very thoughtful. He also has some secrets that he's not telling people until later, which is interesting. So that he's more interesting for those things that I'm like, it's not important what he looks like. He could look like anybody. He's Latino. That's about it. It's still a pretty wide range of what people look like. So now I do really describe a couple of characters because I want you to start, because they are puzzle pieces for the plot. So I have a couple characters who I describe pretty explicitly, and even like I don't typically describe like what exactly everybody looks like from like it's not this wash of descriptions of what they look like. That's not really my jam. That's not really how I write. But I do kind of cherry pick a couple of descriptions to really highlight this character. For example, I have Velena, who is the owner of the Time Traveler's Hotel. And she is described as having bouncy curls, blonde bouncy curls, because that was fun. She also is very animated and very active, so they bounce a lot because she's moving all the time. She wears skirts exclusively, and they are long and they swish around a lot. She wears big fat bangles that clang on her arms as she rushes about everywhere. So she has pretty heavy descriptions because it's not just she's very visually stimulating, but also like you can hear her coming. And she's her personality is also a bit much. She's a bit much and she's a bit over the top. And so I went along with that. Her personality matches in how I described her. So, and Matt is a very kind of a passive guy at first, until near the end he actually has to start doing stuff. He has to start protagging. That's how it goes. That's how stories work. I do describe more passive characters with less descriptions. I have a character who's very grumpy and doesn't talk very much. And the only description she gets is that she's a middle-aged woman who frowns. That's it. That's all you need to know. Because it fits her personality. So I try to keep it consistent with that of like, the more a person's personality is, the more descriptions I will use to give you a picture of what they look like. The more calm a person is, I use less descriptions, which is really interesting. Because I want to get the vibe correct. Yes, so that's how I use character descriptions. I use it sparingly in some situations for certain characters, and I really heighten it and pile on for other characters, depending on the situation and depending on the character, depending on the POV. Another factor in all of my describing is, whose head am I in for this chapter? Matt, because this is part of my world building, is that he is a biological time traveler. And part of that is that he is hyper aware of all external stimuli. In my world, jumpers, which are biological time travelers, they have the ability to kind of see a level of reality that normal people can't. And the way I describe that is that their senses are overloaded almost constantly. So Matt, from when we're in his head, in his perspective, in his chapters, he gets very descriptive about things because he is feeling everything around him constantly, hearing, feeling, seeing, smelling. All of it is very overwhelming for him. So I do use quite a bit of descriptions from his perspective. Because we're in his head, I want you, the reader, to be feeling all of the things with him, particularly when he's getting overstimulated. So when he first meets Valena, she has a pile of descriptions because he is a little overstimulated when he meets her. And she's a little overstimulating to be around. So every time he is around her, he's a little overstimulated because she's a little bit much, which is ironic. But that's part of her character. She's a little bit ironic. She's a little bit of a mistake, honestly. Like, she isn't supposed to be this way, but she is. Definitely the vibe with her. So I have that. So a lot of other characters I describe a little bit more completely than Matt is, because he is hyper aware of what people look like, what people sound like, what people act like, how people walk and move. He's just very hyper aware of that because of how he's wired, basically. So I have that. When we're in other people's heads, other people's descriptions, they're not as concerned. They're not as worried about how thick the carpet is, or if the air conditioner clicked on, or the fact they can hear people's pants and skirts rubbing together as they walk. Like, it's not an issue for them, and that's fine. It's just the level of description changes based on the situation and the character talking. So I'm not doing a fan cast, but we're talking about why. And that's because of how I use character descriptions and how I use descriptions in general. That's the jam. How do you describe your characters? This is so interesting to me, and diving into why I made certain choices is really interesting to me, because I probably won't make these same choices for another project. In fact, I'm positive I won't. Yeah, I will not do this for a different project because I will be in different characters' heads. If I'd write a book 2, there is potential for a book 2 for this. If I do write a book 2, it may not be from Matt's perspective, so we may get, descriptions of him, which is great. But it just will depend. And yeah, I have a couple other projects noodling around in here. They need to have a very different vibe and need to have very different descriptions, and are going to have different characters who see the world differently. And I think that's really important. So if I can look at you dead in the eye and say, when you look up advice about character descriptions and descriptions in general in your work, you got to apply it as it fits to your writing, your voice, your characters, your POV. Like, it really depends. There is good advice out there, great advice out there about how to describe your characters well, how to describe your world well, all of those things. But also, you got to take it with a grain of salt, because they aren't you. They aren't writing your story. So you got to make your own choices and forge your own path. That is a lot of being a creative, and it's hard. That makes it hard, but also like really beautiful and really worth it, because no one can make what you can make, and that's amazing. So thanks for having this little chit chat with me. I will see you later with probably some tea. Today it's coffee because that's just the way it is today. If you don't mind, I'd love you to drop a cup or a mug emoji. Drop a cup or mug emoji down below. We've got links down below to Instagram, where I am a little bit more active. I don't know. Drop links. There's links below to Instagram. If you would like to try Scrivener for yourself, I have a link below. I'm an affiliate of Scrivener, just PSA. There's also a link to my Ko-fi. You can buy me a Ko-fi coffee to stock me up because mama needs coffee. And tea. I'm out of tea. I was so sad. Anyways, I'll see you later. Bye. Cheers.